When David and Priscilla Morris adopted Ryan Morris, a Bulgarian orphan who was born with dwarfism, he weighed only PS8. Now, when the 8-year-old child arrived in Tennessee, he had to be rushed to the hospital so that doctors could implant a feeding tube in his stomach. The medics predicted that the boy would die. According to Mrs. Morris, Ryan, on the other hand, was triumphant and his feeding tube has now been removed. He now weighs PS23 and has started to speak verbally. Baby Ryan was captured in 2015, and after seeing a photo of the malnourished orphan who weighed just PS8 at the age of 7, Priscilla Morris became motivated to save him. But as a result of her devotion, Ryan and his wife have taken on a whole new look. God bless David and Priscilla Morris of Tennessee with extremely unique hearts. Despite the fact that they already had 2 biological sons, they decided to open their hearts and homes to Mackenzie, a small Russian girl who came to live with them in 2012. Despite the fact that the 3-year-old had Down syndrome and a heart condition, her new loving family was completely understanding of her situation at that time. They thought they'd reached the end of their adoption adventure. In 2014, however, God brought Priscilla Morris face to face with a scene she could never forget. She came upon a photograph of a malnourished youngster who looked more like a baby than a 6-year-old boy. Since he was so underweight, Ryan's orphanage photo reminded me of my brother, who had comparable needs and received the care he needed before passing away. After months of begging, my husband consented to let us adopt him. I merely have to look after him, she explains. When they discovered the boy, who was later given the name Ryan, he was literally withering away in a Bulgarian orphanage. He wouldn't be able to last much longer until he was taken in, and Priscilla couldn't understand why she couldn't save Ryan the baby. She realized she was being called by God to bring Ryan back to his family. I don't know how to put it, Priscilla Morris explained, but you just know when you look at them. We decided a long time ago that if we were going to adopt, we'd adopt the kids who no one else wanted, youngsters from third world countries who were being held captive in orphanages. Thankfully, her husband, David, was fully supportive of her decision to save Ryan. As a result, the couple started the process of finalizing another foreign adoption. Everything was in order and ready when Ryan moved in with the Morse family in November of 2015. Priscilla took a flight to Bulgaria, excited to meet her newborn son. The doctor claims all he needed was a feeding tube. His life was being taken away by starvation. I visited his room for the first time, and the first thought that sprang to mind was that he was going to die. I was correct. I was stunned, and the pictures do not do it justice. In person, he appeared to be considerably smaller. It's deteriorating and becoming more fragile. The diameter of my index finger was the same as his thigh. By this time, Ryan had reached the age of 7. The emaciated child, on the other hand, weighed just PS8. He was basically bones and skin, Priscilla Moore says. He appeared to be a skeleton in every way. As soon as I realized what was going on, the first thought that came to mind was his death. The poor boy had cerebral palsy, clubfoot scoliosis, and microcephaly, a birth disorder that affects the brain growth and skull size, among other things. If there was any hope of recovering baby Ryan, it was imperative to get him medical help as quickly as possible. When Priscilla and David Morris arrived in the United States, they took Ryan to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital right away. It was the first time anything like that had been seen by the doctors. They told me after 7 years of famine that this would have made national news in the United States. Since it was such a shocking event, another comment said they didn't think he'd make it. Priscilla describes her experience as, "I'd never seen a doctor gazed at a child and burst into tears before. They all agreed that this kid should not have lived," the dedicated mother stated. Ryan was hospitalized and stayed in the hospital for a month. Doctors began to have doubts about his ability to live. It was discovered that he had repeated syndrome, a condition that made it difficult for his body to absorb foods that he did not used to receiving on a regular basis. He just spit his dinner back into his mouth instead. I suppose you defend yourself against how serious it is in order to get through the day and do what needs to be done. Priscilla expresses her thoughts for a long time. It was intense, she adds. Despite Ryan's problems and unique medical needs, the Morse family remained optimistic that he may be saved. Fortunately, surgeons were able to successfully implant a feeding tube in Ryan, allowing him to receive the nutrients he so desperately needed. As he got more physically active, they were able to address some of his other health issues. And now, after a few years, the astounding transformation is nothing short of incredible. The injury was repaired using surgical procedures. Ryan's scoliosis was greatly aided by his clubbed feet and the placement of a spinal rod. He was able to grow out of his newborn garments and into a child-size 56 clothing. Thanks to a healthy diet, he now has a complete range of motion in both hands and is able to communicate more effectively. As a result of these gains, in May of 2020, Brian will be 12 years old. What's even more amazing is seeing how far he's come. According to Priscilla, Ryan's doctors and therapists are optimistic that the boy will continue to develop and reach his full potential. It's going to be a long process, she predicts. Repairing 7 years of neglect in a single day is impossible. Furthermore, while Ryan still has a long way to go, the amazing development he's already made should serve as a lesson to never give up hope. The story of baby Ryan's rescue is a remarkable example of selfless love at its most sublime level. Priscilla Morris believes that everyone deserves to be a part of a family because things will be challenging. The fact that someone has special needs should not exclude them. Even if life is already difficult enough, you adjust and learn because these youngsters deserve our attention. The journey of Ryan has gone through illustrates the transformational power of love. This family has been given a very specific mission by God. Since Ryan's adoption, David and Priscilla Morris have adopted Kiki, a special needs child from Ukraine, given birth to their biological son Will, and adopted another special needs child from Ukraine. The story of this wonderful family is quite inspiring, and we hope you enjoyed hearing it. It also serves as a reminder of God's unfailing love for his children. God asks each one of us to show grace and love to our fellow man in our daily lives, just as he loves us. Adopting a child with special needs demands a great deal of bravery and compassion. Despite the fact that these youngsters demand the greatest attention, they are the ones who receive the least of it. They are the last to be adopted, and due to the prohibitive cost of caring for these children, they are frequently neglected. This, however, is simply one of the problems that young children face. Discrimination against children with special needs occurs regularly everywhere they go, and this is especially true among their peers. When this happens, parents have a responsibility to inform their children about the specific requirements of these angels. How can you help your kids develop empathy for children who have special needs? Despite the fact that it appears to be a challenging task, it's not. Here are some things you can do to help your children grow up. To be compassionate. Set a positive example for your children. It's no secret that children follow in their parents' footsteps. As a result, if you're kind to a specific youngster, your child is likely to be kind as well. But whether or not the children are present, it's even more crucial to educate oneself about these specific requirements and respond with empathy. Encourage children to become friends with the angels as a result. According to the study, children with Down syndrome are among the happiest babies on the planet. Encourage your children to become friends with them. Only when your child has observed what they're going through will he realize the gravity of the issue. Don't ask us if they're in need of aid. It may sound strange, but when making accommodations for children with special needs, their parents may not always be satisfied with your decision. No one likes getting a new treatment. You might also simply have a normal talk with the parents as an alternative. Persuade them that you live in the same world as their children and that you think it's perfectly okay. The world needs more families like the Morses. Each of us, on the other hand, can make a difference in making the world a better place to live.